Welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com.
What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined every Friday by my main man, Derek Bell. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk or anywhere you get your podcast today. It's Browns week. We are 2 days from the final regular season game of the Pittsburgh Steelers season. I don't even want to ask anything else before I ask this. And I know I have my set questions in the beginning here, but do you think this is going to be the last week of the Steelers season? I think that is the biggest and most important question everyone is wondering.
Man, I really hope not. As I'm in full draft mode already, but I'm ready to continue this thing, man. I want to play. I want to play for another week. I want to have another one of these podcasts where we get to preview a game. So I really hope not. I think you got to be pretty grateful for how things have played out for the Steelers over the past couple of weeks. Everything that needed to go right for them has went right, and also, what do they say? Like fortune favors the bold or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
the Steelers have taken care of their business too. So, they've kind of put themselves into this situation to where they could potentially get lucky, and we'll see if it happens. But I'm optimistic. Like I said, I just want one more week at least, even if that means, going into a playoff game where they're probably going to be, huge underdogs and potentially get drummed. I still want to have a chance, to get into the dance.
Yeah, I do want to get into at some point whether or not they could actually compete in the playoffs, because that's obviously a lingering question, but we got a lot to talk about. The first thing, it is a little snowy. It's cold outside. It was beautiful yesterday. So, classic Pittsburgh weather. I could only imagine Kentucky is the same thing, probably times like 1.5 as usual. How you feeling, my friend?
Feeling good, man. Like I said, I'm in full draft mode, so it's been I've been just tape all week, but it's been a fun week. Got to some interesting prospects. Really excited about this Browns game too. I low key, man. My buddy's been sending me ticket updates for Sunday's game. He keeps like trying to inch me towards like heading up to Pittsburgh this weekend. If I wasn't going out of town in 2 weeks, I low key might have done it, but yeah, I'm jealous of everybody that's going to be there. I think it's going to be a fun game regardless, even if there's, not very much to play for on the Cleveland side.
Yeah, it's still Cleveland Browns. And even if there isn't much to play for the Browns, there's, being able to eliminate the Pittsburgh Steelers from the playoffs is enough. If this was reversed, you'd be sitting here telling me, yeah, well, there's not much, but this is still a meaningful game because you get to kick the Browns out of the playoffs, which is easily a victory for Cleveland. Going away in 2 weeks, that's exciting. I do want to drop a little tidbit because we do give our fans of the podcast, I think, a little bit more inside than we give anybody else anywhere, and we like to drop a little bit of things. I don't think you knew this was coming, and I'm not going to lay it all out there, but you said that you were diving into draft week heavy. Maybe this week, maybe next week, depending on the Pittsburgh Steelers outcome on Sunday and a couple other games. We got some big draft stuff coming. I'm very excited about the big draft stuff. Derek's got a lineup of some things that everybody should probably pay attention for. So that's all I want to say, but it's exciting stuff. It's exciting stuff. Let's dive into the playoff matchup here. The Steelers Browns, obviously, we will get into that. There are two other games that decide the fate of the Steelers playoff hopes. The Buffalo Bills at the New England Patriots and the New York Jets at the Miami Dolphins, which will be headlined not by Teddy Bridgewater, not by Mike White, not by Zach Wilson, not by Tua Tagovailoa, by Joe Flacco and Skylar Thompson. Flacco will start for the Jets. Thompson will start for the Dolphins with Teddy Bridgewater out with a broken pinky. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I saw people on Twitter saying, I don't know if I'm excited about this or not. I mean, it's Joe Flacco. He's done the Steelers a lot of wrongs. Maybe this is a good.
Yeah, I don't know what to think, man. I asked this question on Twitter yesterday. I'm really not sure what to think about that Jets Dolphins game. I mean, it has the potential to be just historically ugly. I watched the Dolphins Patriots game really in entirety last week, leading up to the Steelers game. The Dolphins, I don't know what they're gonna do with the Tua situation. I hate that his season has been so heavily impacted by the concussion stuff. Hopefully he gets well, but I don't know what they're going to do with the backup quarterback situation. Like
Yeah.
Teddy is definitely a spot starter caliber guy that you want in that role, but Teddy hasn't been healthy. Like he's played in like several games this season. He hasn't finished them.
Yeah.
So then you're down to like Skylar Thompson, who I believe was like a 7th-round pick or something like that.
Mhm.
And I've watched him multiple times this season live. Have not been very impressed. So I don't. That's the thing. Like with the Dolphins, I don't know that I have a ton of faith in Flacco, just because I remember watching a bunch of their tape before the Steelers played them in week 3 or 4 or whenever that was. Wasn't too impressed. He was putting up a lot of garbage time numbers, but I will say, like, I think I have more faith in Flacco than I do Skylar Thompson, if that's what it comes down to. I know Teddy's kind of like up in the air. It seems
No,
like.
no. As of McDaniels, as of today, it's Skylar Thompson.
It's Thompson? Okay. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely have more faith in Flacco. The only thing is the Jets defense, which has been, like, extremely good all season long, they didn't look good last week,
No.
in my opinion. They were kinda, having some issues on the defensive side of the ball that I haven't seen, so that's worth noting too. Miami does have, regardless of who the trigger man is, Miami has probably, a top 2 receiving core in the league, or receiving duo with Waddle and Hill. So I mean, we'll see what happens, man. But like I said, the Steelers have given themselves a chance to get in, and you just kind of got to pray that everything happens. But you got to take care of your own business first, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm worried about.
100%. You got to focus on Cleveland. That's the Steelers' first hopes. I will say that I talked to, I think there was like 2 or 3 Steelers guys that I was talking to yesterday, and they told me that their worry is Jets Dolphins, because in the words of one Steelers player, Buffalo's going to smack New England. And I was like, oh, all right. Well, that's
I don't think we got to worry about that.
no, nobody's got to worry about when
The
you
only
almost
thing,
lose to Skylar Thompson. That's why Skylar Thompson looks good, is because you were watching the game on Sunday. I was listening to it as I was driving, and you were like, New England's about to lose to Skylar Thompson. Like that was your thought until Kyler Duggar took that pick 6 back for a touchdown. Your thoughts were, they're going to do this. That's how bad New England is.
that's the thing is, New England's offense is so dysfunctional,
Yeah.
that it has pretty much just torpedoed their chances this season to make any type of noise. The only thing I will say about, speaking of Kyle Duggar, I talk about Duggar a lot on Twitter, but Duggar's a baller. Like
Oh, yeah.
that dude is a baller. I love watching that dude. He is a like film junkie's dream. So yeah. Ryan has a good question. Chances Bills sit the starters if Kansas City wins on Saturday. We'll see. I
Yeah.
don't know. I think that actually I'd have to run the scenarios, but it seems like that's probably not going to happen. I've listened to McDermott talk a little bit. Of course, a lot of their focus has been on DeMar Hamlin, which thoughts and prayers go out to him. It's awesome that we're getting some good news regarding his health.
100%.
But it seems like Buffalo is planned to win the game this weekend. So, and I also will point out that Buffalo is missing like 5 or 6 starters when they play the Steelers early in the season, and Buffalo's backups on defense are still really good. So
Yeah. Very good.
Buffalo top to bottom is extremely good. They have one of the deepest rosters I think in the league. So even if they do decide to sit some guys, to pull some guys maybe later in the game, I still have enough faith that like New England's probably still not going to be able to move the ball against them.
Yeah. And at the same time, like, speaking of the Cincinnati situation, if you're the Bills, you're not trying to give your guys 2 weeks off, essentially, to say, okay, like now we're going to head into the playoffs and have to play somebody after we just rested our starters for 2 weeks. So at bare minimum, I feel like they'll at least play a half, which is probably enough. Like you give yourself a half and then put Case Keenum out there. I trust Case Keenum a little bit,
Yeah, I
see what
think
happens.
if we're doing like a let's just call it like a dangerous index, like
Oh yeah, it's way
not
at.
not worried at all about the Pats beating the Bills. Slightly worried that the Browns could beat the Steelers, but not really. And then I have no clue what's going to happen in that Jets Dolphins game. I mean, that one's a complete toss up to me.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you could credit to, I have some Jets Dolphins follows on Twitter. Credit to anybody trying to break that one down, because I got nothing for you. I got
No,
nothing for you. It's going to be a complete crap show.
Hey, crap show somehow works in the Steelers, but that's all right because the last time Flacco played a good game against a bad team was the Browns. He threw for 4 touchdowns. So,
Yeah.
just got to keep a little bit of hope alive. The other side of that, obviously, we talked about Bills and Patriots. Steelers got to beat the Browns. The Steelers have some news. The Browns have some news. I want to get into all that, I think, first. Now, let's stick with the playoffs. I like the playoffs. I think we got a good flow going with the playoffs here. The Browns, they'll have Deshaun Watson for the first time against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Meanwhile, on defense, they got a little bit of some weird headlines going on. Did you see the Tomlinism used by Myles Garrett today?
Man, that debacle on that side side of the ball for Cleveland, I don't really recall ever a player coming out and saying some of the stuff that Clowney was saying to the media. And here's why I think, just from Clowney's perspective, it's really weird because I think that I've always gotten the impression, just with like Clowney, I think he has a little bit of like overinflated value of himself.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think Clowney's a good player. Like, Clowney's one of the better edge run defenders in the league. He can kind of be disruptive as a pass rusher through stretches, but like, he's just a good role player. Like, he's not a superstar. So like, when you come out and say the best player on the team is getting preferential treatment, like, if you're a coach, isn't it your job to put your best players in
Yeah.
positions to succeed?
I didn't
Like,
get that
and
at
what
all.
and just so what he's talking about, to fill y'all in, is that he's talking about, basically, Cleveland has done a better job in recent weeks of like moving Myles Garrett around. So what they've done with Garrett, and it's been really successful. Like, for one, Garrett can pretty much beat anyone one-on-one, but he never gets one-on-one matchups. So what they've done is they've put him on the interior and designed some different structures in their front to get him like one-on-one opportunities against guards. And Clowney's kind of been upset that he's not getting those looks. But the thing is, like, again, like I said, like, Garrett's the franchise. Like, he's the best player on that team by far, one of the best defensive players in the league. Of course, the defensive head coach, like the defensive coordinator and the head coach, are going to go out of their way to make sure that he is the game-wrecking force that they need him to be. So just kind of a lack of self-awareness from Clowney. Really weird. I definitely think it was the right call from them to send him home. I mean, he's not going to be back next year. You don't want to let that distraction kind of linger in the locker room. But it is bizarre. I thought it was crazy that came out. It didn't just come out in the locker room, but like got out to the media, and the way that he portrayed it, kind of, it was crazy.
In week 18, like, that's the thing that doesn't make sense to me, is how did it be held back all season long, and then week 18 he was just like, I'm just gonna pop off, like, who cares, we're just gonna stir the pot. And then in his final quote, he's like, there's a 5% chance I come back. No, there's not after what you just said. Like, well, there's a 0% chance you're coming back.
It seemed like he was almost insinuating that, like,
you move on from Myles Garrett.
No, I think it was more of like moving on from like Joe Woods, their defensive coordinator. But
okay.
But their defense has played better in the past, over the past like 5-6 weeks. Like, it's been a lot better than it was, because coming into the season, like, you looked at the Browns roster, I thought that they had some issues in the middle of their defense, like their defensive tackle situation, their inside linebacker situation was a little problematic to me.
Yeah.
But on the edges, you got Clowney and Garrett. You've got JOK as a speed weak side linebacker. You've got a really good set of corners. Pretty much, I would think that 90-95% of the league would be willing to take, Denzel Ware, Greg Newsome. Martin Emerson's had a decent rookie year for a corner. That's always a tough transition. And then they've got Greedy Williams, who, he's a guy who has contributed since he's been drafted. He's kind of fallen to the wayside at times in their rotation. So that was a defense that had some high expectations that they really weren't living up to. But over the past like 4 or 5 weeks, it's been better. So I'm not sure that they move on from Woods. But again, that was what I think he was referring to, which is kind of crazy to me, because it's like, dude, you're a good player, but you're not a player that they're going to go out of their way to change their entire scheme or, replace a coach for you. Like, no. It's just, I just, like I said, I think it just screams of like lack of self-awareness, just to me. And it's very odd. It is very odd. You don't see that a lot at the professional level.
You see it a little bit at the professional level. You just don't see it. I wouldn't say super often to the media. Yeah, to the media. Usually it's a leak. But yeah, he was super open. And the craziest part is he's on a 1-year deal. So it's not like the Browns were like, we value you as a
And that's
superstar.
his choice too. Like he has been
Yeah.
wanting to go year to year with everywhere that he's played for,
Yeah.
3-4 years now. It's the whole thing's just odd to me.
It's an odd situation, but that's Cleveland. Sometimes the Browns brown, and that's just what it be. That's just what it be. But it is stirring the pot a little bit. It's definitely got to add a distraction for the Browns defense. I want to talk about the Browns offense though. Deshaun Watson, this will be the first time that the Steelers get a hold of him this week. First time in a long time. I asked a couple of guys, do you just watch the small sample size that you've gotten this season, or do you go back 2 years? And a lot of them said you can't really go back 2 years. That's too far to kind of check out a player. And you kind of understand who Deshaun Watson is, and then you just evaluate what you have this season. When you watched the tape, did you see a serious difference from Jacoby Brissett to Deshaun Watson? At the time, Jacoby Brissett wasn't playing terrible when he faced the Browns or faced the Steelers and beat the Steelers in week 3.
No, he played really well against the Steelers in week 3. I mean, there was a lot of good reps. I mean, just going back to that game, I didn't watch too much of the offense stuff because I feel like the Steelers are different on offense now, a little bit different on offense now, and different quarterback. The Browns defense has changed so much, so I didn't really think it was pertinent to watch that. But I did watch the Browns offense. Brissett was really good that night. He was really accurate. But the Steelers had a lot of trouble stopping the run. They had trouble containing Amari Cooper. That was when Ahkello Witherspoon was kind of still being like the number one guy to kind of match up with him, and he really struggled that night. So that is going to be very different. Like in terms of like stylistic differences, Jacoby is a like throwback type pocket passer with a good arm who doesn't really want to do too much out of structure. He's not a guy that wants to move a ton. He wants to hang in the pocket and throw.
Yeah.
Watson is a different guy because he's an athletic passer who does like thrive out of structure, but can create some things from inside the pocket as well. But just in terms of like how their offense has changed, I think the numbers would probably bear it out too if I had to look, but it seems like a little more play action.
That's what somebody told me. A player told me yesterday is there's a lot more play action.
Yeah, a little more play action, and then just like there's been times where they noticeably tried to get him out on the edge too, and you're not going to be able to do that with a guy like Brissett. So getting him on the move and having him, just outside the pocket has been, has yielded some decent results. Watson looks really rusty to me. I mean, he looks like a guy that hasn't played football in two years, and the quarterback position. We talk about this a lot on the draft podcast too, but the quarterback position is such a timing-based position. Split seconds really matter a ton in the league because the windows are a lot smaller.
Yeah.
And Watson's a little bit of a chaotic quarterback anyway. Like he really likes to play out of structure. He sometimes invites pressure. His pocket navigation can get a little murky from time to time. He just looks rusty. And I figured that was going to be the case. But make no doubt about it, he has not played well, and the Browns are going to need him to play much closer to the version that he was in Houston next year, or else this thing could go pretty sideways quick because the guaranteed money, it has the potential to be a disaster like nothing else we've ever seen in the NFL, and that includes Russell Wilson's contract.
Wow, that's a big statement.
Because of the guaranteed money.
Well, yeah, it's a big statement. It's a bad year.
Here's the deal.
Situation.
Here's the deal. And I've listened to podcasts about, and I'm not a huge podcast guy. It says the podcast co-host, but I've listened to podcasts.
Host of 2 podcasts. Let me get that.
Yeah. I've listened to people talk about the Russell Wilson situation because it's fascinating to me. It really is. The situation that Denver's got going on, it's one of the more interesting storylines. But you can get out of Russell Wilson's contract, right? Like, if they wanted to move on next week or a couple weeks from now when when the league year opens, for like $100 million dead money.
Yeah.
Obviously a ton of dead money.
Dead money, but it's not
talking
250.
Double that. Yes, we are talking double that for Watson.
Yeah.
So like I said, potentially catastrophic, like organizational sinking cost type of stuff that gets everyone in the organization fired. There's a lot hanging on the balance of that dude's shoulder.
Dude, we have talked about the Cleveland Browns for 10 minutes now, and what we've talked about is how their two defensive stars, at least one defensive star, is fighting with another one and using Tomlinisms to describe it, and how they might be in the worst quarterback situation of all time if it doesn't turn around next season. It's good. It's a good
Yeah.
time to be Browns
And I'm
fan.
not. I'm just trying to keep a level head about
Do
it.
you,
I am not to the point where I am extremely worried about Watson.
I was gonna
I'm
say, do
really
you
not.
think he turns
Like
it
I
around
said,
next year? Like, do you think he's showing enough that you're like, or has shown enough in the past that you're like, yeah, he could do it?
Watson can still be a difference maker. I mean, he's
Yeah,
still young. We gotta see what this looks like next year. But here's the thing: like his off the field stuff is not going to lend him any. You know, he's not going to get much leeway in the
yeah,
national media or the spotlight or anything like that. So that's the thing. Like next year, if things go sideways, even in the first month of the season, Stefanski's job's on the line, Barry's job on the line. Like there's a lot of things that could happen pretty quickly next year if they get off to a poor start, especially with him. So we'll see what happens. Another big thing you talk about, like their stars, maybe not, maybe not pertinent to like the future or just, but to this game, like Denzel Ward's questionable, and
yeah,
Ward
which
has
is
been
huge.
playing. I came on this podcast when they played Cleveland early in the season. I was telling people, I'm like, Denzel Ward not playing well right now, man. Like the Steelers can 100% go after him because he was really struggling early in the season, which I've always thought he's a really good player. Was not playing very good ball for the first half of the season. That has changed drastically over the second
Yeah,
half. He looks much more like the player that they thought they were getting when they paid him. Last week, I went back and watched their defense against Wentz, who's a disaster, by the way. I don't know why so many of y'all think he's so talented. I've never gotten it. But anyway, that aside, he was locking Terry McLaurin up. And I think McLaurin is like top 10, top 15 type receiver. So
yeah.
he was locking him up. So if he doesn't go, that's a huge blow. Regardless of the other cover guys that they've got in the secondary, that's a huge blow to their defense on Sunday.
That is a huge blow to their defense on Sunday. On the Steelers side, though, Minkah Fitzpatrick is also questionable. So is Miles Jack. Don't expect him to go. I don't know. Like, I expect Minkah to go. I feel like Minka's going to be fine. If he doesn't, though, that's possibly bigger than anybody in Cleveland not going.
Yeah, the Minka thing obviously really needs to be in the Steelers' favor. Like they need him out there. I mean,
They do
like
need him out
he
there.
was named team MVP today, and that to me was a no brainer
Yeah,
decision.
no brainer. Yeah, I do want to
Minka,
get into that at some point.
yeah, Minka not only has he been the Steelers' best player this year, he's been one of the best safeties in the league. And even though they do have quality players on the defensive side of the football with Wyatt back, and I trust KZ. He's a little bit of a gambler, but I do trust him. He's just like he's not Minka Fitzpatrick. And like in a game like this that you absolutely have to win to get into the playoffs, you really need your best players. So hopefully he's good to go. I guess we'll have to just see kind of how that plays out.
Do you expect Mark Robinson to start again next to Robert Spillane? Because I
I
don't
don't.
expect Jack to go. Like, from what I hear, Jack's groin is completely torn. He's just kind of working through it to see what he could do, but it does not sound like it's going to be good for him.
I don't know. I don't know what to think.
They're playing Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Like, it is a running football
Yeah,
team.
I don't know what to think, man. That game plan that the Steelers defense had last week was really good. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's so funny because I feel like they did a lot of the things that we were talking about on the podcast last week. Load the freaking box, and they took it to the extreme, man. Like
Yeah, they literally followed our instructions,
you
and it
don't
worked.
see very many NFL teams roll out like 4-4 defenses, and that's
No.
exactly what they did.
Dude, there was one corner on the field for 55% of that game.
It was awesome because like I said last week, somebody was commenting on the video too and was saying that we were taking the Ravens playmakers for granted, and I was like, brother, the Ravens playmakers stink. Like stink. So and we saw that on Sunday, but it is what it is. But no, it is gonna be it's gonna be a smash mouth kind of matchup for sure. I mean, the Browns, what they like to do, they want to run the football. Nick Chubb, one of the best running backs in football. One of the things I kind of want to note about the Robinson thing, and I just think it's pertinent with the Ravens run game or with the Browns run game, excuse me. Nick Chubb, when like the Browns like to do a lot of run concepts, like power gap concepts where they pull a bunch of guys. Chubb actually leads the NFL with 123 carries where like there's pulling offensive linemen. On those carries, he's averaging 5.6 yards per carry.
Poof.
So they're like he, leads the NFL in those attempts. He's second in the NFL in yards per game. And guess who is number one? That's J.K. Dobbins, who has given the Steelers a ton of issues over the past two matchups. So that's just some of the things you saw. Like I'm sure that you guys watching the game, but just combing through the tape, the Ravens all the time over their two matchups were pulling like the backside guard, backside tackle, getting into the hole. The Steelers did seem to have a better counter for that this time, but you're going to see there's going to be a lot of similarities because Baltimore is a power gap heavy team. So is Cleveland. So there's going to be some similarities and some type of game plan carryover, I would imagine, from last week to this week. The biggest difference is no matter what you think of Watson, and like I said, he's really struggled.
Yeah.
He's a lot better than Tyler Huntley.
Yeah, he's no Tyler Huntley.
I want to be very clear about that. Tyler Huntley is not I don't really think Tyler Huntley is a real NFL quarterback. And in terms of even a spot starter, I don't really think he's a capable passer. So that's the difference. But the Browns, they're going to play a lot of heavy personnel. They like to get into 12, 13, 21. They use fullbacks, tight ends, stuff like that.
Do you see a 2-6-2 formation?
That's what I'm talking about. The 4-4-6-2, like whatever you guys want to call it. It's gonna. I do think we're gonna see some like 4-down lineman stuff. If the Browns do elect to go with a bunch of like 21 personnel or even 12, they might play a little bit. The thing that is a little bit difficult too with the Browns, Njoku hurt them early in the season. So the Browns, I think their philosophy, or I think what Stefanski wants to do with Watson whenever he gets back to himself, if that happens, I think what he wants to do is play a bunch of 12 personnel with Njoku. Maybe they draft another tight end to pair with him and they pass out of those situations, kind of like the Pats used to do. Teams that can, kind of dictate formational alignments and still throw the ball. That's kind of dangerous. And I think that's what Stefanski wants to do. I just don't know if he can do it right now because Watson's not playing his best ball. So,
yeah. And they also have Harrison Bryant as their backup tight end who, is good at times, not good at other times.
Yeah.
It'll be an interesting. I'm just excited to see Watson. If we're being honest, I'm excited to see Watson in Heinz Field or Acrisure Stadium get a first look at what this is going to look like. Because whether or not anybody wants to admit, Deshaun could stink for the next 3 years. The Cleveland Browns are rolling with Deshaun Watson. They're not going to not roll with Deshaun Watson. So I want to see what that atmosphere is like in Pittsburgh. I want to see how the players react to that situation. I want to see how the teams react to that situation. I feel like it was like a Myles Garrett is the face of the franchise. Now it's kind of rolling over to what Deshaun Watson might be the face of the franchise. And this is, to me, it's a headline matchup. It's very, very important. I do want to talk about the team MVP that you brought up earlier in Minkah Fitzpatrick, and then Kenny Pickett won Rookie of the Year. I agree with you. I don't think there's any question Minkah is the team MVP. There's no, like most years you kind of felt like, oh, it's TJ Watt, 0 questions asked. That guy is just so dominant. I feel like with Minkah, the defense has been so rocky all season that you kind of forget at times that this dude is putting up ridiculous numbers. I mean, he's got a career high 6 interceptions. Last year we were talking about, it wasn't us. We were not talking about it, but a lot of people were talking about, has Minkah lost his spark? He's not doing what he used to do. Is he trying to do too much? It was so stupid because he came back this year. He's got 6 interceptions and a touchdown. And the dude is by far the best player on the Steelers defense, I guess, outside of TJ Watt, who hasn't played most of the season. Easy question. Kenny Pickett went in Rookie of the Year. That's by the Pro Football Writers of America. I got to vote in that. I did vote for Kenny. I will be very open about that. There was some argument or some backlash that it should have been George Pickens. Do you agree with that, or do you think Kenny was the right move?
I probably would have went with George just because the full body of work, but I don't I don't necessarily have a problem with them giving it to Pickett either, especially with what Pickett's done the last 2 weeks, leading game winning drives late in the game. So I don't have a problem with the voting process of that. I probably would have went with George because I feel like the level of play has been a lot more consistent over the course of the season. But again, I don't have an issue with it. I think it's awesome. We talked at length on the draft pod earlier this week about his development and some of the things that he was able to do against Baltimore that I thought were really really important, crucial to the outcome of the game. So yeah, I mean it's good for him. I'm happy for him. It's
No,
good.
I agree. I agree. My thought was, so I was told by, the president of the PFWA, wait until after the Baltimore game to cast your vote. And in his words, it was like, just in case George Pickens has 3 touchdowns. And I was like, okay, so apparently people think that George Pickens is going to be the guy. And then Kenny goes
Had
out
his
and
best
does what
game
he,
of the season.
yeah. And I was just like, well, I can't vote for Kenny Pickett. Like there's people, I'm out here trying to come up with t-shirt ideas because I think that the dude, is the face of Pittsburgh for the next 10 years. I can't be like, oh, it was George Pickens. It was probably George Pickens. But I will say this. I do think that next year, if we had next year's team in Pittsburgh right now, where it was a year of Kenny Pickett developed, a year of this offense flowing together, George Pickens is probably like a 1,500-yard receiver, 10 touchdowns, ridiculous year. And I would say it's easily George Pickens because that's half the battle. Half the battle of the season was the fact that he did everything he did. And then there were those games where there was 0 catches or 1 catch for 2 yards or whatever because the quarterback play was just so and the offensive coordinator play was just god awful.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. I would think that if you want an optimist take, and I'm very much a realist, some people can confuse that with negativity.
You're skeptical, bro.
Yeah, I'm a realist about the whole thing. But if you want an optimist take, and this is really something that I kind of believe in, honestly, if you watch the tape, the Steelers' weapons are good. And there are a lot of
Yeah.
opportunities in the pass game that still aren't being converted. And if you're a believer that what we saw against Baltimore with Pickett out of structure, if he can do that consistently, moving forward, and he kind of regains that confidence and that effectiveness that we saw at Pitt, when you combine that, the offensive line who's been better than expected, the run game that's been really good over the second half of the season, you start getting some more consistent quarterback play in the pocket, and then you get a better offensive coordinator. This is going to end up being, I think, a pretty solid offense. I think if that's
Oh
what you
yeah.
want for an optimistic take. Now that's obviously, that's assuming that you get an upgraded OC, and
Yeah, it's like
that's
some good
assuming.
things have to happen.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
assuming that the quarterback development continues on the right track. And we talk all the time about quarterback, it's not linear, it's not guaranteed, it's not always going to be week to week like it has been recently. But I do think there's reason for optimism moving forward for next year, regardless of what happens. Regardless of what happens this week, I think that you got to feel a lot better about the Steelers, this version of the Steelers heading into 2023 after the past month. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Steelers look good right now. And they don't look good. That's the craziest part. The Steelers do not look very good, but they look much better than they have looked. They look like a team. I think that's the biggest part is they look like a team. Like the offensive line looks good. They look like a unit, even if there are mistakes. The running game looks very good. The depth looks very good. The quarterback looks very good. The play calling is still very iffy, but at times it looks good. The defense looks good. It's just like pieces that you've wanted to see all season that you're just seeing now.
They have an identity on offense.
Yes,
Like
for the first time in 2 years.
For the first time in forever, it seems like they're able to run the ball, and like I can't really express how important that has been to their turnaround on offense.
Yes,
They have been able to. They've been so much better on first and second down, getting themselves into manageable third downs. A lot of the biggest number probably increase over the first half of the season to the second half has been their effectiveness on third downs, which has allowed them to sustain drives. But that really has been a benefactor of being better on first and second down, like we always talk about. And that's because they're running the ball better. They're getting those like 4 or 5 yard runs consistently, and it's been very beneficial to them getting into better situations on third down.
Yeah, 100%. And you can only expect that to get back. Possibly, like you said, if you get a better offensive coordinator, if things click. I think at this point, though, a couple questions have been answered because of this, and that is, I have a hard time, and you guys talked about it in the draft pod 2 weeks ago, I think. I have a hard time believing that the Steelers changed much on their offensive line because of how much that has clicked in recent weeks. I have a hard time believing that they're going to go get a big splash wide receiver because I think that they like guys like Steven Sims and Gunnar Olszewski and Miles Boykin. And
They need two. There needs to be two things bare minimum, and we could talk about other upgrades that they could potentially get, like minor pieces. But I would really like to see them do, as we sit here today, I'd like to see them upgrade either left guard or left tackle.
Yes, which will be left guard.
However you want to do it. Upgrade one of those spots with a premium draft pick, meaning like first, second round.
Yep.
And then they need to get a slot receiver. I'm not
discounting. I don't think they do it.
See, I think they do. I think they do.
I think right now,
no discount on Steven Sims and that.
But I think that
play that he made. But
I think that they have too much faith in the group as a whole, and then the expectations for Calvin Austin. I think they're going to look, and Calvin Austin's not a true slot guy, but they're going to try to make him one.
That's why I'm a little up and down about that, because I don't really know how the projection for Austin's going to go. But I also think
there should be one right now. I think that you have no idea what Liz Frank's going to do to a dude who runs a 4.2.
And I think that that's going to depend on who the offensive coordinator is. It doesn't because the slot receiver position, it really doesn't matter a ton in this offense right now because of what Canada's scheme asked that position to do. But having said that, I still think I would take bets on whatever anybody wants to put up that one of those 3 picks is going to be a receiver. And I don't want that to be the case. I just want to make that known.
One of those first 3. I always forget that they have 2 second rounds.
I 100%.
Maybe. I could say maybe.
Maybe. I'm not saying it's going to be like Jordan Addison, nor should it be, in my opinion. But I do think that one of those first 3 picks are going to be a receiver.
I think maybe.
And it's probably going to be somebody, if I had to guess, I think it's going to be somebody that is going to operate primarily out of the slot, because I think they like what they have on the outside, like Deontay. They've moved him around a little bit more, but him as the X, George can be the Z, kind of field stretcher while he continues to refine the other route running aspects of his game. You get a true slot receiver. My preference is that they go out and get a slot receiver that can create some yards after the catch. That is what I think that they lack the most.
Yeah, agreed.
Someone that can work the middle of the field, but also create some yards after the catch. I have a couple names in mind, but I'm not going to drop them right now.
Yeah, I do want you to hold back on those, but I agree. I could see that. Now that you've mentioned the 2 in the second round, I could kind of see it. I'm not going to admit it yet, but I could kind of see it.
There's one. I disagree with the Kenny take. I don't think OC is the issue. It's just the quarterback. I don't know how you watch the Steelers and think that. I'm gonna be honest. I think there's a lot of confusion sometimes when we talk about like different aspects of the team. It doesn't always have to be one or the other. We can talk about singular things and like address those positions individually, but the blame game is not always one or the other. I think that we need to show a little bit more nuance with those takes. I mean, there's definitely things that Canada is still struggling with in terms of like operating a passing game. He's not doing the receivers any favors in terms of like scheming those guys open. It's not a creative passing game at all. Like you can watch other NFL teams and you can see that this offense just looks different. And that's not me making excuses for Kenny. I'm just pointing out the fact that the dude's not being done many favors by that offensive coordinator.
No,
like Kenny has Kenny has some stuff that he definitely needs to improve on. I've talked at length about, especially inside the pocket. But
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, I got 2. There's 2 questions in here I want to address before we get to our picks. One is, I lost it. Chances William Jackson plays on Sunday. I would say 0 right now. I think that the Steelers' plan for William Jackson is to let him practice these next couple of days, hope they make the playoffs so that he could continue to practice. And then Just see what they have in him. You know what I mean? Let him get warmed up. Let him see what's good. And then he'll come back next year. The Steelers could hold on to William Jackson until August before they have to cut him and won't lose any money. So you might as well just hold on. And you're not going to put a guy out there that has never played for your team in week 18 and be like, go ahead, buddy. Amari Cooper just smoked our cornerback one in week 3, but we'll give you a shot. You haven't played since October 19th. So I would say that it's more of just like a let it feel out at practice type of situation. Let him get his feet wet. Nothing. I don't think it would be a good chance that he does play this week. This one's kind of for you. Any players that you think are playing for their roster spot next year if the Steelers season ends on Sunday?
That's a good question, actually. I hadn't thought about that. But that is probably a good way to look at it. I think just in terms of we talked about Mark Robinson. If he gets his chance, I think that this could be a good opportunity for him. The sample size is so small right now. I think I don't want to put the cart before the horse in terms of, getting ahead of myself and thinking, he's going to be in the rotation next year at inside linebacker, because I still do think that there's going to be some change there. I do expect Spillane back. We talked about this on the podcast last week too. But Robinson, potential to play himself into a role next year. I want to make sure that we express this too. Like, when you're a day 3 pick, you have to shine really, really bright in order for the coaching staff and the organization not to look over you. You just don't get the same opportunities. You don't get the same chances, the benefit of the doubt that higher round picks do. And that's how it is in the league. So if Robinson wants to put himself in that conversation to be a starter next year, ball out this weekend. Like, make sure that you leave something in the back of everybody's minds. And then I would also say, I'd also put Leal in that conversation too.
Agreed.
Just getting more playing time. Other young guys like, Dan Moore, big time matchup. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, but he's played better over the second half of the season. If he wants to keep that starting job next year and make the Steelers think twice about, trying to go get one of these premier left tackles in the NFL draft come April, he needs to play well in these types of matchups against Myles Garrett. Because here's the thing, like we talked about, Garrett's not going nowhere. So if you're the left tackle of the Steelers, you're going to have to deal with him twice a year, bare minimum. So you better be capable and show very well in those matchups when given the opportunity. I think they're going to give him plenty of help, but I'm interested to see how he does there too.
Yeah, Dan Moore was my first pick. I think easy. Mark Robinson and Leal are on there for, obvious reasons. I think Levi Wallace is also on that list. I think they like what they see out of Levi Wallace, but he's going to get an opportunity, one last opportunity, I feel, to play against a pretty hard guy to cover in Amari Cooper. If he plays well, I don't think he'll be the Steelers starter next season, but I do think that they could keep him as that rotational piece. I don't know if that's a lock right now, because I think they'll bring back Akello. I think they'll bring back William Jackson, and then they'll bring back Levi Wallace, and then hopefully re-sign Cam Sutton and then draft somebody. So it'll be a pretty loaded cornerback room that they're going to have to narrow down to like 3 or 4 guys. And those 3 guys, Jackson, Witherspoon, and Wallace, will each have like cap hits that they don't necessarily want to take on if they don't have to. So I would say those are big ones. Zach Gentry's out here. I don't think Zach Gentry's on the list because I think the Steelers like Zach Gentry. I think it's more of, is he going to get a Jesse James offer to go somewhere else in the offseason, or, is he going to be able to come back to the Steelers at an affordable price?
Yeah, I really could. As far as Gentry, I don't really have a ton of thoughts on that. If they want to bring him back, cool. If not, I feel like it's
kind of just like whatever. It's Connor Hayward.
I would be really surprised in terms of William Jackson. I'd be pretty surprised if he was back next year. Now,
he's going to be back for the summer. He doesn't take a cap hit until August.
I'll be pretty surprised if he was in the fold, mainly just because of the cap hit. Now, if we're talking about him saying, "Hey, I'm willing to reduce,"
I think that would happen. I think
take a pay cut in order to stay where I want to stay, then I definitely I think cool with that.
I think they'd figure that out. I think they'd extend him. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, they'd work some salary cap magic to where he doesn't take a big cap hit really ever. And he's going to have to understand that that's like, it's not like he's going to go hit the open market and get a major contract again because he didn't play well with Washington. You know?
Yeah, it's gonna have to be a pay cut in my opinion. Just that's the only kind of way that I see him here, and I would still be kind of surprised by that. But the Steelers, that's what I kind of wondered when they traded for him. I'm not really sure. Like, is this back issue? Like, is he ever gonna be healthy? And that's the
Yeah.
you can use these next couple months to figure that out. I see people in the comments too talking about the Steelers offense in 2004. Man, y'all not doing y'all or anybody else any favors by comparing Ben to Pickett, man. Y'all are setting yourselves up for disappointment and unrealistic expectations. Y'all gotta stop with that.
Yeah.
I've been trying to tell y'all that for months, but Ben was a different cat.
He was a different cat.
On a better team. On a
On a
better
better
team,
team.
but
And I think
a
it's
very different cat.
yeah, and came in here as a very different cat. You know what I'm saying? Like and that was the difference, like that's why Ben Roethlisberger or Kenny Pickett was the only quarterback taken in the first round of a draft where quarterbacks stunk, and Ben Roethlisberger came in with what, two Hall of Famers if Eli makes it. When did he come in? Eli, who was in his draft? Eli, Phillip Rivers, him. So he might be one, but at least 3 Pro Bowlers right there. Kenny Pickett he might be the only quarterback in that entire draft besides Brock Purdy who ever starts a game after this season. That's how bad this draft is. So it's just a totally different situation.
It's just not fair. It's
No,
not
it's not
fair
fair to Kenny
expectations to
or to
him.
fans or to the team.
Yeah, and like I know everybody keeps like saying like just off the wall type of stuff, and I'm not saying that some of the stuff y'all are saying is wrong, just in terms of like the surrounding talent. But y'all got to understand, man, like Ben was a top 10 quarterback like when he stepped in the league. Like for one, that doesn't happen very often. I mean, like like the recent examples are probably like
Patrick Mahomes,
Herbert. Even Mahomes didn't do it as a rookie, so like maybe he would have.
He didn't really get the opportunity,
played.
I guess. Herbert, it would be Herbert.
Like let Kenny be Kenny, and let's let Kenny be Kenny, and then let's see where this thing goes. I just think that there's a lot of issues, man, when we start comparing like rookie quarterbacks to Hall of Famers. I don't like that. I understand why you guys do it. It's just we got to quit it's not right. It's not good. I don't think it's healthy discussion either. So
it's self-inflicted wounds. Nobody wants to do this. All right,
it
2
really
more.
is.
Any word on Thaddeus Moss and what his role could be? He did not sign with the team. I don't know what that means. I think as of right now, that was probably more of just like we'll test out Thaddeus Moss to see if we do want to add him to the practice squad. If they did add him to the practice squad, I could see him as a reserve contract. Definitely not somebody that they're going to bring up to the active roster this season. I think it was more of just like just see what they could be working with. Maybe swap out tight ends late in the season or bring him in, as a practice squad guy to work as Harrison Bryant or David Njoku. That's how I kind of looked at that one. And then the last one here, playoff chances are slim, but if the Steelers did make the playoffs, who would they rather play? Everybody in the Steelers locker room, the answer is Cincinnati. I think the more important question is, would it be Kansas City or Buffalo? Who would you rather play if it was Kansas City or Buffalo?
Neither. I think
I was like, I don't have an answer for this one. There's 0.
Neither, man. I don't want to get people's hopes up, man.
No, it's a 0.
I think the Steelers probably get smoked by either team, but my thing is, I don't care about none of that. I don't care about the result of it. Like, give yourself a chance. Let's play one more week of football before we got to get into the offseason. I think just from my perspective, and this is something that I noticed last year when we were really doing the pod, the offseason's long, man. We get into those dog days of like summer and like post draft, but
dude, you're telling me
training camp.
I'm the guy that's gonna sit there and be like, just scroll. Half my job is just to scroll the internet and be like, nothing, still nothing. Spend 12 hours of nothing. Awesome.
It's tough, man. So like, I don't want to. I'm not ready for that yet. Even though I'm already admittedly in full draft mode. I want to play some more football, and I want to have one more week to preview, even if it doesn't end up going their way. And I also think, like, from the Steelers' perspective, this could be huge experience. You got a lot of young guys. They got a really young offense. guys that haven't been in the playoffs. You got a quarterback who's obviously never played in a game like that. So
Yep.
even getting that type of exposure, even if they get waxed, which would probably be what happens, it's still valuable.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
sent
that's
Kenny Pickett to Arrowhead or to Buffalo in the
yes,
first round of the playoffs. Next year,
still
when they're a
valuable.
better team, he's already been there. You know what I'm saying? That is humongous. Yeah, I agree. All right, and then Anthony tossed this one out there, which I feel like we got to answer. I know this pod's going long. What are the matchups getting Derek pumped up for the final game? I don't even exist, I guess.
Jack Conklin's not playing, so Watt will probably have a big day, I would assume. I think Highsmith had a sack last time against Cleveland too.
Yes, he
So,
did.
and Jedrick Wills is a good player. I like watching him on tape. So, I think just the big thing for me too is just like I talked about, watching the inside linebacker. Spillane played really well last week. I know we continue over recent weeks. I feel like talking about how his play has improved, and you got to give credit where it's due. So I'm interested to see how the middle linebackers play in terms of taking on those pullers and stopping this run game. Those are some things I'm looking for. I hope Ward plays because I really like watching him and Deontay Johnson go at it. So I'm hoping that that's a matchup we get to see. I'm not sure if it is or not. Trying to think of other things. That's pretty much it. I already mentioned Myles Garrett and Dan Moore too. Like that's definitely something that we're gonna need to figure out. See, I think this is a good barometer for Moore's progress and where he's at as we head into the offseason and try to figure out really where the Steelers need to upgrade on that offensive line.
Yeah, agreed. Anytime Moore and Garrett match up, you got to watch that and you got to say, hey, this is the bar. How well can you compete against the bar? I agree. All right, let's get into picks here. Pittsburgh Steelers, Week 18, Acrisure Stadium, hosting the Browns. What's up, Deshaun Watson? They walk in 2.5-point favorites. Feels like it's been a while since we've said the Steelers are favorites. 2.5-point favorites, 40.5 over under, which I do not know if you've been paying attention, but that is a huge spike in recent weeks. 40 and that's 20 points a team right there. That is almost unheard of for the Pittsburgh Steelers this season. 2.5 points, Acrisure Stadium, 1:00 game. They'll obviously have all the scores going on, so you know that it's just going to be a little extra juice. There's going to be a little extra something going on in the air there. How you feeling? What are you feeling?
I want the Steelers again.
Oh, wants the Steelers again.
I want the Steelers. I'm trying to think of what I want points wise. The over under is the thing that I struggle with, man. What I really need to do next year when we do the pod, I'm going to make a note to myself. I'm picking either the over or the under every week. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm probably likely to get half of that. And then if I get like 3/4 of my picks on the spread, then
that's not bad.
Then I'm in a great spot. So next year, I'm just flipping a coin and whatever it lands on, that's what I'm going with for the week for the over under. I want the Steelers. Give me the Steelers. What's the weather like Sunday? Is it good?
Let's look it up. Let's look it up on the good old phone here. Oh, it is not looking good right now. No. Sunday high of 39, low of 27, high of 40. It just adjusted as I looked at it. Low of 46, 27.
Rain or anything?
Cloudy, just cloudy.
Give me 23-17 Steelers.
23-17.
Yeah.
Okay. Steve, I like that, but I don't like that at all, for being honest. I don't know how I feel about that one. How about this? I'm going to flip it up on you. I'm going to get a little crazy here. Okay. Don't know how good I feel about this, but I'm going to get a little crazy on it. I think this one's a little high scoring. I think, the Browns offense kind of does what they need to do. Nick Chubb, I get that J.K. Dobbins is J.K. Dobbins. Nick Chubb is Nick Chubb. That's a whole new level of football player. I think he finds the end zone at least twice. Deshaun Watson might score a touchdown. I'm going to go Steelers. I'm going to stick with the Steelers, but I'm going to go over here. And I'm going to say 30-21 Steelers. And I don't know how good I feel about that one. But make the playoffs, don't make the playoffs. You score 30 points in week 18, you're feeling real good heading into the offseason. Real good heading into the offseason. And it's a game where it's not super competitive. I don't expect it to be like, oh my gosh, this is coming down to the wire. Steelers are going to take care of business. That's how I look at it. Feeling good about it. I went to go make a chart. I'll have that chart next week because I have everything but week 15 accounted for, because in my sticky notes, I lost week 15. But it's all right. I'm going to go back and find it, and we'll have it next week and compare who had the better season. And the record's probably going to be like 2-16 to 3-15, if I had to guess. No doubt. All right, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Find us anywhere you get your podcasts, and check all of mine and Derek's workout at allsteelers.com. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully I'm back on Monday with Steven and some playoff football to talk about, but we will see. Peace.